You!
Freshman year, my mom, we were living in Lawrence. I went to Lawrence North. My mom said, "You want to move to Carmel?" And I was just said yes immediately, not knowing what was in store for the rest of my life. At this point in my life, sophomore year, I wasn't really involved with my faith. So I wasn't really myself, I guess. I never really found who I was. And I was always finding my identity in other people and other friend groups. And that for me was the biggest thing, I think, growing up. Was the hardest thing for me was I didn't really know who I was. I was in my gym at my apartment complex because that's where we moved first. I was in my gym and I was just like, I don't know, getting a drink of water, and then my mom calls me. She's like, "Hey Mason, how's it going?" I'm like, "Hey Mom," and she goes, "So I just went to the doctor," and I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, I was thinking it was just a normal checkup, nothing was gonna be wrong, and she goes, "Yeah, so." I talked to my doctor and he told me that I have cervical cancer. And at this time, I was really just lost. I was just mad because I didn't know what was going on. I was like, "God, why? Why would you do this to me? And not, why would you put this in my life, the struggle in my life?" It was really hard for me. And I prayed immediately on the spot because I didn't know what else to do. At the time, I didn't really turn to the church as much because I was more angry at God. First semester sophomore year, my dad asked me to go to North Beach, and I went once, and I didn't really know anybody, and it was really a struggle because I didn't know who I was as a person. So that was a big thing. And then one time my dad said, "You should go back," and so we drove, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go back." And then on the way there, I realized how lost I felt when I was there because I couldn't reach out and I didn't have a relationship with God. So I broke down in the car and I cried, and I was like, "Dad, I do not want to go." And I just broke down and I was crying. And I was crying because I just realized that at this time now, I realized that how much I needed God. So sophomore year, summertime, my dad was like, "Hey, there's this awesome thing happening in Memphis, Tennessee. It's called SOS. It'd be a lot of fun. You'd be helping people. You'd be help shingling roofs and de-shingling roofs." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And the thought of helping people made me just be like, "Oh, yes, that'd be so much fun." That was probably the biggest decision of my life. So we got there. We did the icebreaker. I really felt connected immediately to the community and just the people there. And the first time we worshiped, I think that was the first time I ever felt God in my heart. And that was the first time I really felt God just take over me. And that was probably the best feeling I've ever gotten in my entire life. On that trip, I found out who I was. And I found out my identity through Christ. That entire week was God living through me and showing me who I was as a person and who I could be. I remember one of the last days, we had a really deep talk that night, and I just broke down crying because of what I went through the past year and what God had done for me that week and how I felt His grace. I just realized how big of a role He played in my life without me even knowing. So one night, my mom came home and was like, "Hey, my cancer had relapsed." And at this point, I was like, why would this happen? Why? I have such a good relationship with God. This shouldn't be happening. I realized that that just because I had a relationship with God, that didn't mean that life was just gonna be easy breezy. I wasn't just gonna be vibing. That things were still gonna come up, and that I was still gonna have storms in my life. So now having the community and the people around me that I didn't have the first time that she got cancer, just knowing that the people, when it relapsed, were there for me, and that the community was there to just pray for me, that just flooded my heart, and it just filled me up so much because I just knew that I had people there that really loved me and that were gonna pray for me and that cared about me. And that's what I felt going into SOS, was just the love for Him and what He could do in my life and how He could change your life just like that. I don't think I would be who I am today without the storms that I went through in the past. And I think that's something for a lot of people. Everybody goes through storms, and that's life. We're not going to get around that. But having God at that time and having the relationship with God and just knowing that God is there and that He's working even in the deepest, darkest storm is the best thing for you in that moment. the one thing that's going to help you get through it is God. And that God is going to help push you to the finish line, is going to help push you past the storm, because he's the only one that can help us in that time.